Hi, my name is Jenna. I'm presenting on behalf of Dr. Veit and I on what lies beneath revealing forgotten lives at Marlpit Hall, located in Middletown, New Jersey. This paper deals with an accidental and unexpected archaeological discovery made in the spring of 2021 at Marlpit Hall, a historic house museum in Middletown, Monmouth County, New Jersey. The Monmouth County Historical Association Associate Curator Joe Zemla was working in the garden at Marlpit Hall when he found a rich deposit of historic artifacts. Aware of the significance of his finds, he reached out to Professor Richard Veit of Monmouth University. This paper describes the site he found in our fieldwork at it. The deposit appears to be representative of a filled-in pit or cellar within a historic structure that stood roughly 25 feet north of the current location of Marlpit Hall. In the past, subfloor pits have been used as a clay source, for storage, as convenient disposal for garbage, or even as shrines. The artifacts are almost entirely domestic finds relating to food and beverage preparation and consumption. They date from the first half of the 19th century and align remarkably well with an early 19th century household inventory. These artifacts, when taken in concert with other finds made by Rebecca Yaman during a 1994 excavation, are especially noteworthy for their ability to enlighten the lives of the people who lived and worked in the Taylor household, most notably the enslaved members. Marlpit Hall, located in Middletown, Monmouth County, New Jersey, is one of 4 historic sites owned and interpreted by the Monmouth County Historical Association. The others include the neighboring Taylor Butler House, the Covenhoven House in Freehold, and the Allen House Tavern in Shrewsbury. Middletown in northeast Monmouth County is one of the first English-Celtic communities in New Jersey, and the property where Marlpit Hall is located is laid out as lot number 36 of the original 1667 survey of Middletown Village. The traditional history of this structure posits that James Grover erected the kitchen wing of the structure in 1686. Its form is reminiscent of other structures in New England and on Long Island, in that it has a salt box form with a single large room in front and 2 smaller rooms behind. The building was expanded in the middle of the 18th century and transformed in a center hall residence with grand paneled rooms in 1756. It should be noted that there are questions about the chain of title for the house, as it is owned by James Grover and then his son, James Jr., before passing to the Van Deventer family and ultimately the Taylors. Deeds representing the time period have been lost, leading to some confusion. It is clear that Edward Taylor owned the house by 1771, though his father may have owned it decades earlier. The Taylors were the leading family in Middletown and owned extensive property and mills. Edward Taylor was the captain of the Monmouth County Militia when the Revolutionary War began, and his son, George Taylor, soon joined the Loyalist cause. He became a commander of the Loyalist Union after he resigned his commission in the Continental Army in November of 1776. The house remained in the hands of the Taylor family despite the disruptions entailed by the Revolutionary War through to the 1930s when it finally passed out of the family. The Taylors, unlike many other Loyalist families, were able to maintain their property during the Revolutionary War, a period when family patriarch Edward Taylor was essentially under house arrest as a result of relaying information regarding the whereabouts of the county militia to his son, Colonel George Taylor. Overall, the Taylors lost much of their wealth and influence after the American Revolution, but they kept their family farm. John Taylor, who was the last member of the household to live in the house and farm the property. A household inventory was taken at his death in 1818 and appears to relate directly to the archaeological deposit examined here. The Taylors were slaveholders, and while information about the names and identities of the enslaved individuals who lived at Marlpit Hall is incomplete, we are able to ascertain certain names from tax records, emancipation documents, and household inventories. New Jersey was the last northern state to enact a Gradual Emancipation Act. That act, brought forward in 1804, provided for the freeing of African American individuals born after the 4th of July, 1804, with males having to serve as unpaid apprentices until the age of 25, and females having to serve as unpaid apprentices until the age of 21. Although the enslaved population varied by county and region, between 10 to 15% of the population of most New Jersey counties were enslaved. After emancipation, the Taylors continued to hire African American servants, and some remained present with the family into the early 20th century. In 1853, Mary Holmes Taylor and her husband, Joseph Dorset Taylor, constructed a brand new house on the property. Joseph had made his fortune in the china trade. The earlier Marlpit Hall was retained as a tenancy. Called Orchard Home, it was one of the finest houses in Monmouth County and drew from the latest architectural guides. In 1919, Kings Highway was realigned and Marlpit Hall was moved back roughly 30 feet thanks to the efforts of Miss Mary Holmes Taylor to preserve it. Sadly, no maps survive to illustrate the specifics of this move. Unoccupied and unused, the house fell into decay. In 1935, it was purchased by Mrs. J. Amory Haskell, a preeminent collector of early American decorative arts. She had the house restored, which was then presented to the Monmouth County Historical Association in 1936 by Margaret Riker Haskell. The house is listed on the state and national registers of historic places and was the first historic house museum in Monmouth County to open to the public. Today, the house is a beloved local landmark, with one noteworthy figure being an herb garden maintained by the Middletown Garden Club. It was in their garden that Assistant Curator Joe Zemla first noticed some historic artifacts and began excavating. He soon found himself in a rich deposit of early 19th century artifacts. In order to make sense of this curious and unexpected discovery, Dr. Richard Veit of Monmouth University was contacted. He had recently completed a pair of archaeological investigations for the Monmouth County Historical Association, one of which focused on the restoration of a smokehouse associated with the Taylor Butler House, and the other that was carried out at the Allen House in Shrewsbury to test proposed locations for a pair of handicapped access ramps. Upon visiting the site, Joe showed them to the location where he had been excavating and then revealed the many boxes of artifacts that he had found, which were stunning. The first task with these artifacts was to wash and catalog them. As this was being completed, the scope of what Joe had found had become apparent. The artifacts included large quantities of bottle glass from late 18th or early 19th century redware, creamware, and pearlware vessels. The vessel fragments were substantial, likely representing the contents of the feature. In order to further explore the site, a 5-foot square excavation unit overlying Joe's informal excavation was laid out. The O horizon and a mixed garden fill deposit were removed, revealing feature 1, a dried limestone wall running parallel to the east wall of the house along the east margin of the building. It was made from dried lime ironstone, locally called peanut stone. Immediately south of the wall, part of which had been robbed out, was feature 2, a dense deposit of historic artifacts. The soil matrix was a 10x 4/6 dark yellowish brown sandy loam. It was roughly bowl-shaped and extended to 2.6 feet below datum. The southern and western side of the excavation unit showed a separate soil context identified as an A horizon. Underlying stratum 2 was a B horizon consisting of a 10y 4/4 brown sandy clay. It contained very few artifacts, though. When the top of stratum 2 was revealed, 3 small features were revealed in the subsoil. Feature 3 is a rectangular post mold visible in the north wall of the unit and measures roughly 10 inches square and extends 2.5 to 2.6 feet below datum. It appears to have been truncated by later earth-moving activities. The soil matrix in this feature was a 10y 4/3 clay loam. Feature 4 was a pit feature that extended from 3 to 3.5 feet below datum. It contained a 10y 3/2 clay loam soil matrix. Artifacts included redware, creamware, bottles, tumblers, window glass, and nails. Feature 5 was another rectangular post mold located in the east center of the excavation unit. It extended 2.6 to 2.8 feet below datum, and its soil matrix was a 10y 4/3 sandy loam. During the fall 2022 semester, from September through the beginning of December, I worked with Dr. Veit to catalog the artifacts, mend broken shards, and establish a minimum ceramic vessel and bottle counts. All the 3,337 artifacts that I identified were cataloged based on the context in which they were found, the quantity of the shards, artifact material, the vessel form, its condition, any decoration or descriptions, and the date range of the artifact. In total, there were 479 pieces of redware, shown in these 2 pictures, 10 yellowware, 329 pearlware, 396 creamware, 30 whiteware, 23 stoneware, 28 porcelain, 4 ironstone, with 1 buff-bodied Staffordshire, 1 Midlands mottled, 1 refined earthenware, 1 terracotta pot, 2 pipe stems, and 1 plain marble. Regarding glass, there were 701 pieces of window glass and 1 bullseye window. There were 28 pieces of tumbler, 983 bottle fragments, 4 case bottles for gin, 8 medicine bottles, 68 cups or tumblers, and 15 glass fragments that could be classified as a bowl or vase. Metal objects were uncommon, but included a large spike, fragments of bale handle from a kettle, and 64 unidentifiable nails. Other likely intrusive objects include a modern key, a crown cap, and 2 .22 caliber bullets. Additionally, 1 floral remain of a shell and 1 faunal remain of a cow, Bos taurus, bone was found, and 1 broken brick fragment. The majority of the artifacts were found dated between the 1760s and early 19th century. A minimum vessel count was conducted for the ceramic vessels, which indicates that at least 288 vessels are present. including 82 redware vessels, 31 creamware vessels, 103 pearlware, and 13 Chinese export vessels. Bottle glass was also used to create a minimum number of vessels, indicating that at least 42 late 18th to early 19th century beverage bottles were present. We interpret these features as reflecting a building with a stone foundation and substantial pit feature that was filled in at some point during the early to mid 19th century with material associated with the kitchen, possibly the kitchen wing of the house before it was moved. It appears to be a clearance deposit rather than a deposit reflective of food consumption, as animal bone and shell were not present. The post feature may have been from piers and may have served to support floor joists. Given the nature of the deposit, it seems likely that this material was associated with the enslaved people who lived and worked as domestics at the household during this period and are documented as living in the kitchen wing. It is possible that this pit is a subfloor pit similar to those noted by Tricia Sanford and others on slave quarters in the South. The artifacts from our modern excavation complement those recovered during previous excavations by archaeologists for Rekiaman. Those excavations were associated with site improvements during the 1980s and revealed an assortment of 18th and 19th century artifacts, including most notably a pair of artifacts that determined to be unidentified hardware. On reanalysis, these appear to be shackles. These shackles are now displayed at the exhibit beneath the floorboards, Whispers of the Enslaved at Marlpit Hall, that opened on October of 2021. Curator Joe Zemlin's chance discovery of a rich early 19th century pit feature provided an unusual opportunity to explore, through archaeology, the history of Northern slavery as New Jersey was a state where humans were held in bondage. Historical records indicate that this peaked during the year 1800 at 12,500 documented slaves in the state. In the period between 1770 and 1830, the Taylors owned roughly 10 estimated slaves. The 1819 household inventory of John Taylor notes a large number of household items. These include crockery, milk pans, case bottles, and green-edged dishes, all of which represented the archaeological deposit. Also listed here are 4 enslaved people: Ephraim, Marianne, Will, and Betty. It is likely that the Betty listed here is Betty Van Cleef, born in 1805, who was manumitted in 1827 and continued to live with the Taylors until 1881. The chance discovery of this early 19th century pit feature, possibly a clearance feature following John Taylor's death, helped illuminate a painful and complicated period in local history. At the same time, the features themselves may provide new information about the original location of Marlpit Hall prior to its removal, and highlight the efforts of female preservationists, including Mary Taylor II, Mary Holmes Taylor, and Mrs. Haskell, to preserve a house that helps tell the stories of Monmouth County's history. And these are some special links that we'd like to get out. Thank you.